Today, I'm going to cover some best practices for hybrid work. I think we've all realized that the future of work really is going to be a combination of some users who are remote, some who are on-prem, some who are a mix of both. Some days they work away, sometimes they work at the office. Now, what I want to challenge you to do as you think about how do I implement a successful hybrid work scenario is to really think remote first. Even though if your plan is only to be remote friendly, you do want users to come to the office sometimes. You still want to be remote friendly. And the best way to do that is to design for remote first. Now, you may think that remote first is this new term that's come up post-pandemic when everybody went remote only. But really, the term remote first has been around for a number of years. The whole idea being if you are going to send users home to work occasionally, or if they travel, you want to make sure that these remote users are as successful when they're away as they are when they're in the office. And the best way to do that is to design with this remote first mentality so that you can make sure you have all the correct tools in place and have designed all the correct philosophies. So what are some of the other benefits about thinking in a remote first way? Well, obviously, if you have users who are remote, it does allow you to save on money. You can shrink the amount of real estate that you're using, for example. Maybe move your data center to a smaller co-location and use the cloud. It also allows you to hire from a larger talent pool. Once you have an infrastructure that supports remote users effectively, then you can hire from essentially anywhere, as long as you have the infrastructure that supports that. A third one we've noticed, improve employee satisfaction. I think when people first started working remotely, it took a little while for them to get into the rhythm of things. But then once the systems were in place to make them productive as remote workers, we saw employee satisfaction go up. And you want to make sure you take that philosophy into the future to not only so that you're not only hiring from a larger talent pool, but you're retaining them because they are satisfied with their work environment. And the last real benefit of a remote first mentality, foster flexibility to work from anywhere. This is important not just if there's some sort of DR event that sends people home, but also just, again, traveling users. A lot of us will or did travel for work or just have life events that come up so that you do need to be away from the office. And if you can foster the flexibility to allow people to be productive anywhere, then that is going to be a big win for your organization. Now, obviously, doing this means that you do need to invest in technologies that really can unify the in-office experience with the experience that users have when they're away. So that might mean looking at software as a service options that are obviously accessible everywhere. Could also mean building a very robust remote access platform so users can log in to whatever your hosted resources are from anywhere. And obviously, that is where Leostream can help you out. So how do you do this? How can you build one of these remote access platforms that I'm talking about, or remote access solutions? And what are the things that you should think about while you're architecting it? Well, first, what you really want is a single login portal for all of the resources. You don't want to have to send users to different places to get to their resources as they travel wherever they happen to be traveling for the day. So a single login portal is very important for an end user experience. But once they have that single login portal, what you want to make sure is that you secure it so that you can require, say, multi-factor authentication when the user is going remote, but then allow them to log in with their AD username and password when they're actually sitting at their desk. That, again, is a very end user experienced feature to allow people to have easier access when they're on-prem. Because say they've already booped their proximity card to get into the office, so you still kind of have multi-factor. The third thing to look at when you're implementing hybrid work and a remote access solution, make sure that you are always offering the appropriate resources based on where the user's coming from. So as they roam to different locations, you want to make sure that you provide or lock down access to not only resources and data in your data center, but potentially different cloud environments that you're working with as well. And again, as users roam, maybe they'll go to a coffee shop. Connecting there, you want to really think about client list options. I may not know what type of device the user is sitting down at. Maybe they can't install software. Maybe I don't want them to install software for security reasons. So really look at what are the clientless options you have to connect users from their device into your resources that you're giving them access to. And obviously all of that then needs to be architected in a way that really does support a dispersed workflow. And what that means a lot is maybe thinking more about moving into the cloud. One of the things we've noticed is it's always best to locate your hosted desktops and the applications next to the data. So move the desktops to the data, don't move the users to the data. That way the application has access to the data and you can get quick performance with the application, and then you use a remote protocol to basically remote the screen only to the user. And that's way better than trying to take the user and move them, the desktop, over to the data. The last thing to think about, always know where users are coming in from. Once you start thinking about hybrid work and you architect for your workforce that can work from anywhere, you need to know where they're always come in from. Really, you want that audit level tracking because it's important for you to know who's using what and from where, and ensure that no one is getting access when they shouldn't be. All of that boils down to be flexible. Always be flexible, not only for what you want to build now, but for what's coming into the future. So with that said, let's look at these 6 bullets here and how Leostream helps you implement them. So let me share my screen. Okay, go to this tab and hide that little thing. So this is the web interface for the Leostream Connection Broker. It is the single portal for everything, not just for end users, but also for administrators. So typically what I do here is I say, I'm going to log in as the default Leostream administrator, but truthfully, that's not what you want to do when you're in production. The broker does come with a default local admin that has full access to everything. But typically what you want to do is provide role-based access to potentially one of your Active Directory users. So that's what I've done here. This is my user account, and I'm going to use it to log into Leostream, but I have a role that makes me an end user and an administrator as well. So I can show you the broker setup and then show you some user connections. So when I sign in, first thing you notice is I am prompted for MFA. So I'm going to go ahead and request a push here. I clearly typed my password wrong. So let's try that again. I got a push on my phone. I'm saying, yes, it's me. And then I'm going to get logged in. Now, because I have a role that's both an administrator and an end user, I get defaulted to the end user interface. And what my end user role is set up to do is allow me to do kind of desktop admin. So I see a lot of other people's machines. I could connect to them if I need to. But I'm going to come over here and say open administrator view. And now I can see what I have access to as an administrator. So now let's look at how this is built up to really facilitate a hybrid work environment. Let me start by looking at authentication. Authentication, very key once you start talking about remote access. So I have set up, we have a couple different Active Directory servers, our main, and then a dev subdomain. So I'm going to use these authentication servers for the policy assignment based on users' member of, what groups are they in these different authentication servers. I'm going to assign different policies out to them. The policies indicate what resources the user has access to. I also set up a few different MFA providers here. Leostream does have native integration with Duo, and then what I'm used is Okta. And so we communicate with Okta in a couple ways. You can use Okta as a SAML-based IDP, and so users log into Okta first. It handles the authentication and redirects users to Leostream. In my case, what I wanted was to use Leostream to do both factors of authentication. So Leostream is going to, or did, you saw it, looked me up in AD to check my username and password. And then once that passed, it went over to Okta to have Okta send me the push notice that went to my phone. Now, what I'm going to end up doing is for users who are remote or an administrator, I want them to go through MFA. For users who are on-prem, they don't have to. So I'll show you here in a second how we configured that. Before we leave the setup area, though, I want to show you centers. A center in Leostream is essentially all the different hosting platforms that we can integrate with, so you can then provide access to those hosted resources to users. And again, single portal. That means you can connect to just about anything here. All the major clouds, VMware, various different hyperconverged infrastructures. I mean, but even if we don't have native API integration with the platform, simply put our Leostream agent on the machine, and then you can manage connections to that machine as well. That's great for physical devices or perhaps private clouds that are built out of a proprietary solution. So for my environment, I have machines up in Azure, so I'm going to show you connecting up to Azure. And the whole idea is my remote users are going to connect to Azure, and my on-prem users are going to connect directly to the VMs that are hosted in our data center on our VMware environment. So to show you how that's all done, I'm going to skip around a little bit. I'm going to start by talking about locations. I created locations so I can change the level of authentication the user is required and what they have access to based on where they come in. Now, for my users, we're going to always log in using a web browser. This allows me to use those clientless options. So I have one client location, which is all device types that are web browsers. So that's going to trap all of the different web browsers. And then nested underneath that location, I created a location which is everything in a particular IP address range. I did this for my on-prem users because it's typically you know what IP address range your client devices are going to pick up when you're in your office. So this is my IP address range for our office here. So that gives me my locations. And now assignments here, these 4 rows should look identical to the 4 rows you saw in the setup authentication servers page. So in here, again, is where we're going to indicate who has access to what, based not only on who they are, but where they log in from. So in my case, when I logged in, I'm a member of my test subgroup. And no matter where I log in from, if I'm a member of that group, I do have to go through MFA because I am ultimately going to get the connection broker administrator role there. So I got that role, and then I happen to get the default policy. Everyone else is going to fall through and then start getting these potentially assigned to these other rows. So I'll show you someone who logs in, and they're in the student group from an on-prem browser. And then if they fall, a user that falls through that row, any other group, they have to go through MFA when they come in from a remote web browser. And then they get a different policy here that's going to connect them using the HTML5 RDP viewer, which is included in the Leostream Gateway. So before I go any more into the connection broker setup itself, let's show you this in action for end users. So first I'm going to connect as a remote user. Now, one thing you'll notice here is the URL. I'm actually going through the gateway in this case. The Leostream Gateway is part of the Leostream platform. It provides these 2 functions. One is gateway functionality to the Leostream connection broker itself. So that way you put the connection broker off the internet, maybe locked in your data center in a private cloud, and use the gateway to forward the login to the broker. So the gateway is really just a tunnel. It's not performing any of the logic. The broker is still handling all of the smarts. The gateway is simply giving the user a way to get to the broker. So I'm coming in through the gateway because I am remote. I'm away from my connection broker here. Hopefully I typed this password right, because Milo is a remote user. He has to enter in some information here. This time I'll show you it with the PIN. So I submit the code. Now again, remote users get an Azure machine. So his Azure machine is here, and it's actually not running, which is on purpose because you don't want machines running when they're sitting up in the cloud. So now that I've logged in, I can come in here and start the machine. This is the Azure portal, just to show you. Somewhere up here is a refresh icon. There it is. So as I keep refreshing, at some point in time, this happens to the machine he's connecting to, and we'll see it flipping over to a running state as it continues booting up. Oops, wrong tab. So while that is starting, let me show you the login for a local user. So here I'm actually connecting into a machine that's on-prem. So I'm at home, I'm considered remote. Here I'm actually remoted into a machine that's on-prem. So I can pick up an IP address of an on-prem user. So now when Mabel signs in, she goes straight to the desktops because there's no, because she's not remote, so she doesn't need the MFA. Now also because she's on-prem, in her case, she's going to launch a client-based protocol. It's actually going to launch HP, our remote boost. And somewhere in the background, my HP remote boost client is launching there. There it is. So it's going to connect. And you can launch a client-based protocol when the user is launching on-prem because they have more control over their client devices, for example. So there's her connection. She's getting single sign-in there. My Azure machine is taking a long time to start up. While it's continuing to start, we'll go back here and look at some of the connection broker setup that allowed us to change those end users' experiences. And that's essentially done through policies. So I created 2 policies here, one for my on-prem users, one for the remote. You can have as many policies as you need based on the number of workflows you need to satisfy. For my on-prem user, who was Mabel there, she was offered 1 machine from the remote boost. Now, the thing about remote boost is it's actually a protocol that supports collaboration. And so within Leostream, I've enabled the policy option to allow the user to invite other users to collaborate on their session. This is also great when you're talking about a hybrid work environment because now users who are scattered across the country, perhaps across the globe, can stay in communication, actually work on the same session at the same time. And then I've assigned my plans down here so that she actually gets connected with the appropriate protocol. You can see here, if I just close that, now that she's connected, if I refresh the list, I'll get a new invite option here. And so that invite option opens up the dialog where I can actually invite other users to come collaborate. In the meantime, let's go and look at Milo's machine is now started. So I can hit connect. And again, this is my remote user. So it's going to launch the HTML5 viewer that's, again, included in our Leostream Gateway. So that's a nice in-browser connection, works on any device that you have. Milo's policy is here. It's the HTML5 remote policy. Setup very similar. I just check the pool that I want to offer the user to, the number of machines from the pool, and then associate the correct protocol plan based on how I want to connect that particular user. Now, because this is a pool of cloud machines, I've selected a power control plan that also shuts the machine down on release. So it's very important to make sure you're assigning plans that control the power state and control the length of assignment based on how you want your roaming users to actually interact with their machines and how long they should own it. Now that all my users are connected, I want to show you the users page here. The users page always shows you who has been logging into your Leostream environment. And you don't need to pre-populate users. As new users join your organization, they will automatically be added to this page the first time they log in, assuming your assignments table allows them to log in. And here you can always see what desktops are the user currently using, are the users currently using? When did they sign in to the Leostream environment? What roles were they offered? So I can see who my administrators might be. And you can see the client IPs. So here you get information about the client, so you know where is that user coming from. You also always see all the clients that are connecting on the clients page. So now you can keep track of which devices are actually coming into my environment. I'm just trying to find my mouse here. And I think with that, I'll wrap it up. There's a lot more that you can do with Leostream to support your hybrid work environments. If you want to give it a try, we do offer a free trial. So feel free to contact us at sales@leostream.com. Thanks.